51-year-old David Klein is behind bars after police found his mother unconscious and fused to bedsheets covered in dried feces and maggots. At 12:20 p.m. on Sunday the 7th of April, authorities responded to a home at 16 Dresner Circle in Upper Chichester Township, Pennsylvania, after receiving a call requesting a welfare check. A neighbour who made the request said he had not seen Daniel or his mother in months. The concerned caller said that Amazon packages were starting to stack up outside the house, and several white plastic bags consisting of unopened food were at the front door. When officers arrived at the premises, they knocked and rang the front doorbell numerous times with no answer. They then checked the rear sliding door and could partially see a large amount of trash on the floor and numerous flies on the windows. Fearing that someone inside was either dead or having a medical emergency, officers forced entry into the home when they detected a foul odour. Once inside the residence, they made contact with David Klein and asked him to escort them to his mother to check on her. While walking through the house toward the rear master bedroom where David claimed his mother was sleeping, officers found the home was littered with trash and swarming with flies. David's mother was found lying in bed under a soiled blanket and was unconscious but breathing. Medics were called to the house to remove the blanket from the elderly woman and found her lower half to be covered in dried feces and maggots. Her feet displayed what officials called ram's horn toenails. Medics were able to remove Daniel's mother from the bed, revealing her to be fused to the bed sheets. The victim was taken to the Crozer Chester Medical Center in a critical condition. Daniel told investigators that he was his mother's sole caretaker and that she had not been out of bed for 3 to 4 weeks, but police suspect the woman may have been confined to a filthy bed for months. Daniel was arrested and charged with abusing a dependent person and reckless endangerment. He remains held at the George Hill Correctional Facility on a $50,000 bond. The investigation into the matter continues. 37-year-old David Bunn is behind bars and is accused of kidnapping a child, drugging her and sexually abusing her. David met the teenage victim through Snapchat and utilised a ride-sharing service to bring her to his home at 5744 Kenwood Drive in North Point, Florida. Police were made aware of where the child may be after she did not return home. On Monday, the 8th of April, detectives went to David's home. After initially denying that the victim was in his residence, officers continued to investigate, finding the female juvenile inside his bedroom. The girl advised that she had been drugged, sexually battered multiple times, and was not allowed to leave the home. After interviewing the girl, police returned her to her parents. Authorities said that they are providing all available resources to her. David was arrested and charged with lewd, lascivious battery on a child between 12 to 16 years old, interfering with the custody of a minor and kidnapping. He was booked into the Sarasota County Jail, where he remains with no bond. North Point Police Chief Todd Garrison said, "Please do your best to keep track of who your children are talking to online, or keep them off it altogether. We understand that this is not easy, but monsters like this are real, and they're closer than you might imagine," he said. Authorities advise that it's possible that other victims could be out there, and have asked anyone with information to contact Crime Stoppers. 25-year-old Jennifer Prudencio is behind bars in connection to the death of her 3-year-old son Yael Prudencio. On the morning of Sunday the 7th of April, Yael was found deceased in an apartment at the Acadia complex at 242 Spencer Avenue in Chelsea, Massachusetts. Authorities said that Yael had been sick in the weeks leading up to his death. He suffered from a seizure disorder, had haemophilia, and had been vomiting blood in the days before he died. He had also fallen while having a seizure and suffered a bleeding face wound that wasn't healing properly. Jennifer had twice sought medical care for her son that week. On the night of Saturday the 6th of April, the child vomited again and appeared pale. Despite being aware that something was wrong, Jennifer left her 3-year-old in the care of her 2 other children, aged 7 and 8, and went out to a bar in Revere where she drank alcohol for a number of hours. Instead of returning home, she slept at her boyfriend's home in Somerville. At some point during the night, the 8-year-old texted his mother expressing concern for his 3-year-old brother's well-being. He even attached a video of the child. Jennifer told her son that she would soon be home, but didn't return until 10 a.m. the next morning, where she found a 3-year-old boy dead and contacted 911. While interviewed by police, Jennifer indicated that she was aware of the seriousness of her son's condition before leaving him with no adult supervision. She also admitted to receiving a text from her 8-year-old son during the night and deciding to stay out all night anyway. On Tuesday the 9th of April, Jennifer was arrested and charged with involuntary manslaughter and reckless endangerment. During her arraignment on Wednesday the 10th of April, she pleaded not guilty to the charges and was ordered held at the Suffolk County Jail on a $100,000 bond. The State Department of Children and Families took emergency custody of Jennifer's surviving children. The investigation into the matter continues. 21-year-old Emmanuel Espinosa is behind bars for the stabbing death of his mother, 46-year-old Elvia Espinosa. On Saturday the 6th of April, Emmanuel drove from the University of Florida in Gainesville to his mother's home at 82 Deer Road in Frostproof, Florida to attend an event for his grandfather. Elvia invited him to stay with her while he was in town. At 2 p.m. that afternoon, Emmanuel arrived at his mother's home. Ring camera footage showed Emmanuel walking toward the front door, listening to music on his AirPods. He then stood at the doorway with a small knife hidden behind his back. He tried to open the door, but it was locked, so he knocked on the door. The second Elvia opened the door, Emmanuel began stabbing her. Emmanuel, who was studying to become a doctor, told investigators that he knew where to stab her for maximum effect because of his biology classes. He said he knew if he stabbed her in or around the heart, his mother would bleed out. She screamed his name multiple times during the attack, all while Emmanuel remained completely silent. Emmanuel told investigators that he noticed her hands were still moving, so he stabbed her some more. Detectives determined that Elvia suffered more than 70 stab wounds all over her body. Authorities said that Emmanuel cut his hand while attacking his mother and was seen washing his hands and the knife on an interior camera. Emmanuel told investigators that as he stood at the kitchen sink to wash himself and the knife, he wanted to ask his mother for the Neosporin for the cut to his hand, but he noticed she was dead. He then called 911 and confessed to stabbing his mother. When the dispatcher asked if his mother was awake, he said she bled out. When deputies arrived, Emmanuel was covered in blood, and he told them that he killed his mother because she got on his nerves. He said he loved his mother and described their relationship as an 8 out of 10, but he said he wanted to kill her for years. He then went on to say that his mother talks out loud to herself, then she'll ask herself questions, and then answer her own questions. That went on for years, he said. Emmanuel was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and tampering with physical evidence. He's held at the Polk County Jail without bond. Authorities said that Emmanuel has no prior arrest history or history of mental problems, and no items were found at his room at the university that showed that he planned his mother's murder beforehand. Investigators said that Elvia had no negative interactions with her son that day and was excited to see him. Elvia's obituary described her as a beloved teacher at the Ben Hill Griffin Elementary School and a light in everyone's life. A 22-year-old woman is behind bars in connection to the death of her newborn son. At around 2:30 a.m. on Sunday the 3rd of March, police and medics responded to an apartment on Bel Air Drive in Lawrenceburg, Indiana on reports of an unresponsive 9-day-old baby boy who was purple and blue. The infant was taken to the St. Elizabeth Dearborn Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Investigators said that the child had been dead for an extended period of time before police and medics arrived at the scene. Authorities said that the infant's mother, 22-year-old Rayleigh Phillips, left the newborn strapped into a car seat for about 13 hours. Rayleigh told police that she fell asleep and later found her son slouched in the car seat unresponsive. Authorities said that the infant had not been fed for about 14 hours and was wearing a soiled diaper. An autopsy revealed that the cause of death was positional asphyxia. Prior to the child's death, Rayleigh said she went to her friend's house on the 1st of March and stayed the night there in Aurora, Indiana. Her son was with her at the time. Rayleigh told investigators that around 1 p.m. on the 2nd of March, she put her son in a car seat to get ready to leave Aurora. She stopped at a Kroger on the way home and arrived at her apartment at around 2 p.m. She noticed her son was asleep, so she took him inside and left him in the car seat. Rayleigh told investigators that she hung out with her roommates and watched TV and did not check on her son because he seemed content. She said she fell asleep between 4:30 and 5 p.m. in her bedroom with the car seat next to her. When she woke up, it was early Sunday morning, and Rayleigh noticed her son was cold and limp. Rayleigh's roommates told detectives that she was hysterical and screaming, "Help me, call 911, baby ain't breathing." That's when they called 911 for help. On Tuesday the 9th of April, Rayleigh was arrested and charged with neglect of a dependent resulting in death and reckless homicide. She remains out of the Dearborn County Jail with bond set at $200,000. The investigation into the matter continues. A 52-year-old woman is behind bars after claiming that she received a stolen SUV as a birthday tip from a Waffle House customer. At 3:55 p.m. on Monday the 1st of April, the Tulsa Police Department's Real-Time Information Center received an alert from a flock safety camera about a stolen white Jeep Liberty at East Admiral Place and North Darlington Avenue in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The information center continued to track the stolen Jeep until officers could initiate a traffic stop just under a mile away, near the intersection of North Sheridan Road and East Archer Street. The driver of the vehicle, 52-year-old Angela Harrison, claimed that she was at a gas station just an hour before. She said she ran into a customer she knew from working at a Waffle House and that he gave her $10 cash and the keys to a white Jeep Liberty because her 53rd birthday was coming up in a few weeks' time. The Jeep had been reported stolen before Christmas, and police had a photo of Angela in the car from January. Tulsa police said Angela confirmed that she was a woman in the picture, but could not explain how she could be in possession of the vehicle in January when she claimed it was gifted to her only an hour before. Authorities said that the Jeep's owner passed away last year, and the police returned the SUV to his family. Angela was arrested and charged with possession of a stolen vehicle. 41-year-old Holden Farrer is behind bars after police say she attempted to kill a pharmacist. At around 4:15 p.m. on Friday the 5th of April, Holden left USAVE Pharmacy at 423 4th Street in Grand Island, Nebraska, after becoming upset with employees. About 25 minutes later, a pharmacy employee received a call from Holden, advising to tell another employee that she was going to choke her until she dies. At around 5:30 p.m., the Grand Island Police Department received a call from a national suicide hotline, stating that Holden was suicidal and homicidal, and that she was on her way to the 4th Street Pharmacy. She stated that she was going to kill a pharmacist, and that she'll be wearing a mask and carrying a knife. Less than 5 minutes later, officers arrived at USAVE Pharmacy. Holden arrived soon after, and parked a white SUV directly in front of the building, in a no parking zone, and exited her vehicle with a knife in her hand. She tried to enter the USAVE Pharmacy, but officers held the door shut and prevented her from entering the building. After failing to enter the premises, Holden returned to her SUV and tried to leave, but a car was blocking her. Officers broke the driver's side window of her vehicle and physically removed her from the SUV. Her vehicle then rolled into the car, blocking her exit, causing damage. Holden was arrested and charged with attempted second-degree murder, use of a deadly weapon to commit a felony, resisting arrest, and obstruction of a peace officer. She remains held at the Hall County Jail on a $200,000 bond. Grand Island Police Department Captain Dean Elliott said, "Officers show great restraint in not using deadly force. We're proud of them for that," he said. The investigation into the matter continues. On Friday the 5th of April 2024, 48-year-old Samori Moses was sentenced to life in prison for torturing and sex trafficking 8 women and fatally beating and dismembering one of the victims, 32-year-old Leondra Williams, in 2017. The murder took place at an apartment at 185 Erasmus Street in Brooklyn, New York. Samori pleaded guilty to the crimes in September of 2023. Authorities said that since 2003, Samori lured women and girls with false promises of love. Samori would then threaten his victims, as well as rape, beat, torture and psychologically manipulate the women and girls into sex work in Brooklyn and Queens. Samori collected all of his victims' earnings, kept the money, and made many of the women and girls tattoo his first name onto their bodies. When one victim refused to engage in prostitution, Samori used a taser on her and slashed her arms and back with a razor, and beat her with a belt before pouring lemon juice on her wounds, leaving her permanently scarred. When another victim told Samori that she did not want to work as a prostitute, he put a shotgun in her mouth and threatened to kill her and her child. Another victim failed to give Samori the money he demanded, so he beat her with an extension cord, leaving her with numerous open bleeding cuts, and told her that he was a pimp, and this is what he did. He threw another victim off a roof, raped her, and bit off a piece of her buttocks and then spat it back at her. In the early morning hours of the 13th of January 2017, Samori murdered Leondra Foster, one of his sex trafficking victims, by beating her until she was dead. Leondra sustained bruises and abrasions all over her body. Samori inflicted at least 5 blunt force injuries to Leondra's head, either by hitting her directly or by banging her head into another surface. The fatal blow was to the back left of her head. She'd been alive for all the other injuries, but that last blow to her head fractured her skull, rendering her unconscious. Leandra suffered a seizure and died within minutes. Samori then used a knife and a sword to dismember her body inside their shared apartment in Brooklyn. The following morning, Samori brought another woman back to his apartment for a sexual encounter, while Leandra's dismembered body was concealed inside. The woman later told law enforcement that there was a strong odor of bleach in the apartment. On the morning of the 17th of January 2017, Samori transported Leandra's torso and limbs to the Bronx for disposal at a garbage transfer station at Halleck Street. After disposing of most of Leandra's body parts, Samori then texted another victim and said he was on his way home from the Bronx and he just did 110 over the Brooklyn Bridge. Leandra's head, hands and feet, including a foot with the name Samori tattooed on it, were subsequently recovered by law enforcement inside the freezer of Samori's apartment. United States Attorney Breon Peace said, "A lengthy prison sentence cannot undo the extreme and lasting harm Samori has inflicted on his victims, but incarceration will prevent this killer who clearly has no respect for human life from victimizing others." A 29-year-old mother and a 27-year-old boyfriend are behind bars after a 5-year-old girl was found covered in fecal matter and died from malnourishment. At 5:12 p.m. on Tuesday the 9th of April, authorities responded to a mobile home in the 6500 block of Denver Drive in Indianapolis, Indiana, where they found 5-year-old Kinsley Welty unresponsive and appearing malnourished. Paramedics transported Kinsley to the Riley Hospital for Children, where she was pronounced dead. Upon further investigation, police arrested the victim's mother, 29-year-old Toni McClure, on Wednesday the 10th of April on charges of murder and child neglect resulting in death. Officers also arrested Toni's boyfriend, 27-year-old Ryan Smith, on charges of child neglect resulting in death. They both held at the Marion County Jail. The victim's mother initially blamed Ryan for the abuse Kinsley endured, but later admitted to harming her daughter. She was aware that what she was doing was wrong, but she didn't care. Police located a small closet inside the residence that was full of fecal matter. Toni forced Kinsley to stay in the closet, which she blocked off with a dresser. The young girl had feces on her hair and feet, as well as lice on her face and head. At the time of the death, Kinsley weighed less than she did when she was 2 years old. Toni admitted that she routinely put Kinsley in the closet and did bare minimum to feed her daughter, who often complained that she was hungry. Toni told officials that she was worried her daughter would eventually die due to her actions, but she said she didn't want the girl in her life. Toni's boyfriend told police that Kinsley had been kept in the closet since Thanksgiving and wasn't often allowed out. Ryan said that he knew the child was losing weight, but failed to call 911 because he loved Toni. The Indiana Department of Child Services took custody of the other children inside the home. Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Chief Chris Bailey said, "The circumstances of Kinsley's death are horrific and beyond comprehension. No human being, let a child, should be treated like she was. These suspects, if convicted, should never step a foot outside of a prison." Previously in December of 2018, when Kinsley was just a 3-week-old baby, Toni was charged with neglect because Kinsley was suffering from failure to thrive. Toni received more than 400 days of probation after a judge in that case suspended her sentence. The investigation into the matter continues. 2 people were dead following a murder-suicide. At just after 6 a.m. on Thursday the 11th of April, authorities went to a home at 425 Millett Road in Minot, Maine after receiving a call to complete a welfare check. When deputies arrived on scene, they entered the residence and found the bodies of a man and a woman. The deceased were identified as 19-year-old Amali Sully of Lewiston and her boyfriend 20-year-old Tyson Peters of Minot. Investigators determined that Tyson fatally shot Amali before turning the gun on himself. Authorities said that the pair had been involved in a relationship and were the parents of a 2-year-old girl. It's unclear if the child was home at the time of the shooting. The child has since been placed into the care of her grandmother. A man was fatally shot after a stray bullet came through the front door of an apartment. At around 10:25 p.m. on Tuesday the 9th of April, authorities responded to the 1000 block of Interfaith Boulevard in Kalamazoo, Michigan, after receiving multiple reports of shots fired involving an unresponsive man bleeding from his head. When officers arrived on scene, they found a crashed vehicle with bullet holes, multiple shell casings and a small crowd. Near the scene, officers found 53-year-old Mark Wayne Jackson unresponsive with a gunshot wound to his head inside an apartment. He was taken to a local hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Relatives said that Mark, who was from New Baltimore, was visiting family in Kalamazoo when he was accidentally shot and killed during a suspected drive-by shooting that occurred in the area. Authorities said the suspect shot at the occupants of a car and then ran away. None of the occupants were hurt, but one of the rounds of gunfire hit the front door of the apartment, going through it and killing Mark. Police said that 2 persons of interest have since been arrested on unrelated charges, but have not shared details about the arrests at this early stage of the investigation. Friends and family described Mark as a fun-loving and truly amazing individual who was always willing to help anyone and will be truly missed. Police are investigating a triple homicide. At 7:16 p.m. on Friday the 12th of April, authorities responded to the Jamestown's Apartments complex in the 4400 block of Duxbury Lane in Lawrence, Indiana on reports of shots fired. When officers arrived on scene, they found 2 women and a man with gunshot wounds. Despite attempting life-saving measures, all 3 people were pronounced dead at the scene. The victims were identified as 19-year-old Alia Wortman of Marion, 19-year-old London Coleman of Warsaw, and 27-year-old Spencer Lawson Jr. of Indianapolis. Investigators said the incident is believed to have resulted from a targeted attack, but have not provided descriptions of the suspect or suspects they are looking for, or a motive in the deadly shooting. Lawrence Police Department Captain Tracy Cantrell said, "Once again we're on the scene of a senseless crime. The Chief, the Deputy Chiefs and myself in the department, in the city as a whole, this is unacceptable. We have to figure out some type of way to diffuse situations like this that do not result in firearms being used to settle conflicts," he said. No arrests have been made to date, as investigation into the matter continues. The death of a disabled teenage boy has led to the arrest of his adoptive mother, while her boyfriend is wanted by police. On Tuesday the 6th of February 2024, the 16-year-old boy who has not been identified was found deceased after being chained to a cot and starved at their family home, located at 11890 Belgreen Lane in Springfield Township, Ohio. An autopsy was completed and his death was ruled a homicide. The Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office said that the autistic 16-year-old had 0 food in his digestive tract. On Friday the 12th of April, after months of investigating, authorities arrested 52-year-old Tamara Moore and booked her into the Hamilton County Jail on 2 counts of murder and endangering children. Police said that they are searching for Tamara's boyfriend, 58-year-old William Turnage. He's wanted for murder, endangering children, involuntary manslaughter, and failure to report a crime or knowledge of a death. Neighbours said the couple had moved out of their home in the last week and a half. They also said Tamara's mother, who recently died, took care of the boy. There were also rumours in the neighbourhood that he was abused. Neighbour Ellen Dowdle said that everyone on this cul-de-sac knows each other knew them. They were just different people, she said. One neighbour, who remains anonymous, said that William had moved from their home recently. I asked Tamara how she's been doing, and she said fine, the neighbour said. She said it's just me now. I said really? And she said yeah. The neighbour said it was Tamara's mother who took care of the 16-year-old, but she died a few months ago. She went and got the food and stuff, the neighbour said. She'll make sure everything was good with the whole family. Another neighbour said they heard stories about the Cincinnati public schools coming to the home. Like the guy had hit the boy, the neighbour said. I've never seen it because I don't know them. They never really came outside. Hope they find him because he deserves to go to jail just as bad as she does. The investigation into the matter continues. 41-year-old Anthony Wessel has been sentenced to life in prison for killing his 37-year-old wife Anna Wessel. On Wednesday the 10th of April 2024, Anthony pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. He'll be eligible for parole after 25 years. At just before 1 p.m. on Monday the 13th of November 2023, Anthony walked into the Oregon City Police Department and admitted to fatally shooting his wife inside their home at 13417 Squire Drive in Oregon City, Oregon. He described the gun he used in the attack and the location within the house where it occurred. Officers responded to the residence and found 37-year-old Anna Wessel deceased inside, with 2 gunshot wounds to the head. There was no one else inside the home at the time of the shooting. Officers also located a note addressed to police, in which Anthony wrote that he planned to kill his wife and himself. A subsequent second note in the margin stated that he decided to turn himself in. Anthony was arrested and booked into the Clackamas County Jail on suspicion of his wife's murder. Anna's obituary stated that she was best known for her extraordinary ability on the piano. The couple's 4 children aged between 10 and 16 years old were placed into the custody of their aunt and uncle. The couple have been married for 18 years, and the motive of the killing has not been publicly shared by police. 36-year-old Dewan Betancourt is behind bars for fatally beating his 4-month-old infant son Quinn Betancourt. At just before 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday the 5th of March 2024, authorities responded to an apartment near Northwest 50th Street and North May Avenue in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, on reports of an infant not breathing. Medics attempted life-saving measures and transported the unresponsive infant to the Oklahoma Children's Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The child was found to have skull fractures, and its cause of death was determined to be from blunt force trauma. Dewan spoke to police about why the baby may have suffered skull fractures, saying that the infant rolled off a couch and onto a soft foam mat a few days earlier, and that he sat on the mat and fell backwards. He said that he put the boy into a swing for a nap at 12:30 p.m. earlier that day, and then forgot about him until 3:45 p.m, where he found the baby cold and not breathing. More than 30 minutes later, he texted his wife, but only typed her name and then called 911 5 minutes later. At the hospital, Dewan said it's all my fault. The autopsy revealed the baby suffered from injuries consistent with child abuse. A doctor said the injuries would have occurred from the baby being slammed on a hard surface, and the baby would have died within 5 minutes of sustaining such injuries. On Thursday the 11th of April, Dewan was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He's held at the Oklahoma County Jail on a $5 million bond. The investigation into the matter continues. A man has been sentenced to 50 years in prison for trying to poison his newborn daughter. On Thursday the 11th of April 2024, 46-year-old Curtis Jack of Hampton, Georgia was convicted of first-degree cruelty to children and criminal attempt to commit murder. Curtis and a woman he had been working with were involved in an intimate relationship in 2020, and that after the woman became pregnant, he pushed her to have an abortion. The woman gave birth on the 24th of September 2020, but was hospitalized after the birth. A week later, on the 1st of October, she asked Curtis to take breast milk for the newborn to the child's grandmother. He was caring for both the newborn and the woman's older daughter. Within 24 hours, the infant became critically ill and poisoning was suspected. Curtis admitted to detectives that he put antifreeze in the breast milk he took to the grandmother, and he told them that he did it because he didn't want to pay child support. After Curtis was indicted, however, he withdrew the confession. Prosecutors presented testimony from the mother, the grandmother, detectives and medical experts, including a demonstration of how easy it is to poison the milk to obtain conviction on all counts. The child's mother said the baby has recovered and is doing well. A homicide investigation is underway after a 17-year-old boy was killed and 2 others were injured during a shooting. At 12:24 a.m. on Sunday the 7th of April, authorities responded to the intersection of Tip Top Drive and Norris Road in Columbus, Georgia on reports of shots fired. When officers arrived, they discovered an unresponsive teenage male, later identified as 17-year-old Bryson Cochran, laying on the road suffering from at least 1 gunshot wound. Medics arrived on scene, but were unable to resuscitate him, and he was pronounced dead at 1:23 a.m. 2 other victims were transported to hospital for gunshot wounds. They remain in a stable condition. Officials reported finding at least 40 shell casings at the scene. The motive of the shooting is unclear. No suspect information or arrests have been announced to date, as the investigation into the matter continues. 3 men are behind bars for killing a 16-year-old boy and injuring 3 men in a shooting. The shooting occurred at around 2:50 p.m. on Sunday the 31st of March in the 400 block of North Laverne Avenue in the Austin neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. Authorities said that 4 people were on the sidewalk in the area when a vehicle pulled up. 2 people got out and opened fire. Investigators said that a 16-year-old boy suffered a gunshot wound to the head and was taken to the Mount Sinai Hospital in a critical condition and later succumbed to his injuries. The victim was identified as John Veer Wynn McKeever. 3 other victims, A 21-year-old man and two 25-year-old men were also shot and suffered non-life-threatening injuries. They drove themselves to West Suburban Medical Center in Oak Park for treatment. Officers responding to the shooting quickly located the three offenders as they fled the scene and were taken into custody. 19-year-old Ronnie Allen, 21-year-old Knowledge Lemons, and 23-year-old Lamont Dixon are each charged with multiple counts of murder and attempted murder. Ronnie and Knowledge were also charged with unlawful use of a weapon. Lamont was additionally charged with receiving, possessing or selling a stolen vehicle. Authorities said that they believe the shooting was gang-related and that the 16-year-old boy got caught in the crossfire. The investigation into the matter continues. A firefighter is dead following a domestic dispute with his girlfriend. On the morning of Sunday, the 7th of April, members of the Jackson Fire Department went to the home of 49-year-old Gerald Buster Bates in the 200 block of Ferguson Drive in Jackson, Mississippi, to complete a welfare check on the fellow firefighter after he failed to show up to work. When fire department personnel arrived, they looked through the window of the residence and found Gerald dead with a gunshot wound to his head, and police responded to the scene. Jackson Police Chief Joseph Wade said that 41-year-old Tammy Williams fatally shot Gerald during a domestic dispute and then barricaded herself inside the home. It's unclear what the argument was about. Officers attempted to negotiate with Tammy for more than an hour, but she remained non-compliant while carrying a gun throughout the house. Joseph said that SWAT was notified and deployed tear gas before forcing entry into the home and taking Tammy into custody. An aggressive dog was killed during the incident, he said. On Monday the 8th of April, Tammy made her first court appearance where the judge denied Tammy bond, citing her as an extreme danger to the community. Tammy was also ordered to undergo a mental evaluation. Officials said that Tammy and Gerald lived together for more than 10 years, and Tammy has no prior convictions. Authorities said that Gerald worked for both the Jackson and the Byram fire departments. The investigation into the matter continues.